Hello again, fellow Gears. What's up? It's Manacon bringing you another Gears 5 video. This one was requested to make one on Baird's skill cards for Horde. And I do need to thank Pro Hitman and Dr. Schwazi on this one, but with that said, let's do this. Baird's ultimate ability is the Reinforced DR1. It summons a DR1 that targets enemies, and with the recent Operation 3 update, the DR1 has become a bit better of an ally to deploy than it once was, and it can help you get out of a bad situation. Quick note though, if you manually mark your enemy targets, your DR1 is much more likely to go after that enemy that's marked instead of just standing next to you when you use your ultimate. Now, Baird's passive ability is like all engineer classes. Baird can build new fortifications at a small discount, as well as carry fortifications faster. Now, let's go on to Baird's skill cards for Horde. Starting out with experimental weapons. 50% increased damage with DB weapons against enemies with less than 100% health. For me, I think this is a really good skill card to have on, especially while you're setting up your base early on in your run. And if you plan to be proactively shooting a lot and getting a lot of kills each wave, then I think you'll really like the extra damage the skill card gives you. Just a quick note on the guns that are considered to be DB weapons. They are the M-Bar, Overkill, and Enforcer. This card also works even better if you pair it up with the Bloody Support skill card. Also, I need to mention that, like the skill card says, enemies can't be at full health for the extra damage to kick in, but I find that it's really easy for most enemies that you encounter to be under full health, or if you shoot them twice with the Overkill, that'll do it as well. But you could easily swap this card out with Bloody DR1, or even Nerves of Steel, or whatever else you may like to use. Moving on to Precision Repairs. Precision kills heal all defenses for 1500 hit points. This is another nice card to have on and equipped because it gives you free healing, which automatically repairs your fortifications that take any damage. But in order for your fortifications to get heals, you must kill an enemy with a precision weapon like the M-Bar or Longshot. And just a quick note, Precision Repairs only works with damaged fortifications, but it does not work with refilling the ammo on your sentries. It just auto repairs the damage itself. Moving on to Combat Engineer. Repair fortifications 300% faster when repairing lasts longer than 2 seconds continuously. Since technically Baird does not have an official repair ingenuity card like Dell and Cat have, I still really like to bring this card because if your fortifications get severely damaged or destroyed during a wave, when you repair those fortifications for more than 2 seconds, the repair speed jumps to 300%, and that's way faster than even Dell and Cat's ingenuity repair speed, which is only at 50%. So yeah, I'll take that 300% repair speed after 2 seconds any day. One quick note with this card though, if you're repairing a fortification that lasts less than 2 seconds, you will not get any benefit from the skill card at all. And it doesn't work with or speed up refilling your sentry ammo, even if it is more than 2 seconds to fill up. Moving on to Global Sentry Upgrade. All MG sentries do 30% more damage. If you're doing a speed run or even just regular Horde and plan on building several machine gun sentries, then this is an awesome card to have equipped, because having that extra damage on your sentries will help your run to go a little bit faster, and because sentries are killing enemies quicker, that in turn will also slightly help your repair and refill ammo bill, because again, you're killing enemies faster. And when it says global sentries, it means that it applies to all MG sentries built. Even if another engineer buys and upgrades a sentry, with this card on, the extra damage will still apply to that sentry bought by someone else. Bottom line though, if you're building MG sentries, definitely bring this card if possible. Moving right along to Global Overclock. All weapon lockers reload 50% faster. Baird's Global Overclock is awesome, and it's one of your best allies to have on and equipped during your Horde matches. And for me, this card never comes off in Horde, and I cannot say enough how amazing it is to have weapons lockers with overclock on them, because you need to give your DPS classes the best tools available to succeed to help ensure you go all 50 waves in Horde. And like the card says, it's global overclock, which means it applies to every locker automatically. Even if someone else builds that locker, it still attaches itself to it. So please always bring your global overclock skill card to each and every Horde match whenever possible. Moving right along to Bloody DR1. Summon DR1s can cause an additional 100% bleeding damage to enemies. If you like to use Baird's ultimate a lot, this totally complements your Summon DR1, because with him having additional bleed damage, obviously enemies won't regenerate their health faster, and of course, they'll die quicker. One thing to note when using your DR1, which is if you mark your enemies, the DR1 is a lot more prone to attack those marked targets instead of just standing by you and not doing anything. But this card could easily be substituted for either like the Bloody Support skill card or Nerves of Steel, or really any other card that, of course, suits your fancy. Moving right along to Bloody Support. Precision damage hits cause an additional 25% bleed damage when Reinforced DR1 is ready. This is another good card of Baird's, but to get the maximum damage effect of it, you want to try to pair this one up with the Experimental Weapons skill card. Quick note though, like this card says, the bleed damage on your sniper weapons only applies when your DR1 ultimate is ready and available to use. So if you do use this card, you need to try to remember to not use your ultimate so you get the full benefit of the skill card. Also want to say, if you don't think you're going to be sniping or using the long shot or M-bar a lot during your run, then this card could easily be swapped for like Bloody DR1 or even like Nerves of Steel. Moving along to Explosive Kill Shot. Killing down but not enemies deals an additional 50% damage to surrounding enemies. This isn't that bad of a card to have on at lower level, and it can be fun to play around with, but as you progress to a higher level, I feel there are better skill cards that you could have on instead of this one. Moving on to Melee Resistance. 30% melee damage resistance. Again, if you're lower level and don't have any other cards to equip, this can be nice to have that extra melee resistance, but once you go into higher difficulty runs, you won't be getting very close to any enemies in general, so I feel there are better skill cards to use rather than this one. Moving on to Nerves of Steel. Repair fortifications 200% faster when enemies are within 10 meters, which 10 meters converts to about 32 feet. This is a pretty good card to pair with the Combat Engineer skill card. However, the way it works with this one is when you're repairing with enemies nearby, it increases your repair speed quite a bit, but it's somewhat of a gamble because, of course, sometimes you won't necessarily have any enemies nearby, which if they're not near you, then that completely negates the benefit of this card from working at all. But I'll have some gameplay footage later on in this tutorial showing extra repair speed times and the enemy distance required to get the benefit of this card. But you could easily swap this card with Experimental Weapons or Bloody DR1 or even Bloody Support. Moving on to Parting Gift. 50% increased damage with grenades when they are tagged to enemies. If you're lower level and want to try and be a little sweaty by getting grenade tags, then this card can be fun to play around with for something different. But on higher difficulties, you're not going to get super close to most enemies to tag them unless it's the last few enemies at the end of each wave. But beyond that, I feel there are more beneficial cards that you could run at higher level. Moving on to Enforcer Porting. 90% reduced recoil on the Enforcer. This recoil reduction card is actually quite nice while using the Enforcer. However, Baird doesn't spawn in with an Enforcer, nor can he buy one from the Fabricator, which is a little bit of a downer about this card. But I think that this is mostly used for lower levels to use while leveling up. Moving on to Heavy Resistance. 30% damage resistance to heavy weapon damage. Another okay card to have on while at lower level, but once you rank up, you won't really be using this damage resistant card that much at all. Going to Inspired Sniping. Successive sniper shots reduce the reinforced DR1 cooldown in multiples of 1.5 seconds. This card can be useful if you really like using your DR1 a lot, and especially if you're sniping and getting a lot of kills each wave, because of how fast this card regenerates your ultimate. But once you level up your Baird, I think there are more useful and better cards to bring on your higher difficulty Horde runs than this one. And lastly, Score Boost and Epic Score Boost. When it comes to both of those cards in Horde, if you're not going for a high score run, they aren't going to do much for you. But that concludes the card overview, and now the fun part begins with some gameplay footage of Brad in action. Thanks, Cody. Now, since the Operation 3 update, your Tier 1 that you summon is much more useful, especially if you mark your targets that you want him to shoot at. He usually will always shoot at those targets that are marked, as opposed to just kind of standing next to you and not doing a whole lot. Thanks, TC, for that. Now, if you look at the yellow barrel on the top left of your screen, you can see a DB that is bleeding out, which is from getting shot by your DR1 and having your Bloody DR1 skill card on, if you'd like that. And last, let's talk about precision repairs. If you notice, those barriers are pretty low in health. Any precision rifle weapon that you get kills with will auto heal your fortifications, not just barriers, all fortifications. And you see it takes about 3 kills here to get those barriers at full health, which is an amazing thing to have. Now here I'm just going to showcase the difference between Dell's Ingenuity and Baird's Combat Engineer, as well as Nerves of Steel. Now with Dell, with level 5 Ingenuity, to repair a severely damaged decoy back to full health, it takes about 8.5 seconds or so, which isn't too bad. Now on Baird, same thing goes here. We have 2 severely damaged decoys. Now this is Baird with just Combat Engineer on. And as you can see, it takes from severely damaged to full about 6.3 seconds or so to repair with, like I say, with just the Combat Engineer on. Now, in this clip, this is Baird with Combat Engineer and Nerves of Steel, repairing a severely damaged decoy to full health, and it takes about 4.3 seconds, which is almost half the time it takes Dell to repair the same severely damaged decoy. Now here's about the distance you need to be from enemies in order to get your Nerves of Steel card to kick in with the extra repair efficiency. But is it worth bringing both Combat Engineer and Nerves of Steel? That'll be your call, but it's definitely fun to have both. But with that, that concludes this Baird skill class card tutorial. And as always, enjoy it, everybody. Thank you.